New tonight, every police officer in Colorado has to pass a certification test so they can carry a badge and a gun.
But CALL7 investigator John Farouche has uncovered that many had questions and answers in advance, and it's been going on for years. You won't believe who's profiting.
And is it a good book?
Oh, yeah. If he would study the book, then he should probably be fine.
It is known in police circles as the Baca Book, and at academies like this one at Red Rocks Community College, where cops are prepared for state certification, our hidden camera captured instructors touting the value of the study guide.
Because I actually heard that some of the questions are pretty close to...
Yes, that's what you would need.
So they're pretty close to actual test questions?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, our investigation has found that many of the questions in the book are exactly the same as those on the test, verbatim. And there are answers.
Nice to see you. Good to see you.
Former Commerce City Police Chief Phil Baca publishes and has sold the book for years under his private label. He sells it to officers who must pass the test to wear a badge and carry a gun. He charges $75.
Ever since I started administering exams, scores were high, very few failures. And in fact, beginning in 2011, we had individuals scoring 100% on the first time.
Until late last year, Carlene Johnson Garcia helped maintain and administer tests for what is known as the Peace Officers Standards and Training Board, or POST. It is the state entity that certifies all officers. It is overseen by Attorney General John Suthers. 2 years ago, Carlene figured out why the scores were so high.
When I opened up the book with my supervisor, I pointed out, I'm like, that's one of our exact questions and answers that's in the database. She was in shock, and she told me that I basically probably need to stay out of this because this is going to be very political. It has to do with the chief of police and the Attorney General's office.
The reason it was a political hot potato is that until earlier this year, Phil Baca was also the chair of the Post Curriculum Committee, the committee that makes up the questions for the test.
When I found out that A, the book actually existed, and B, that yes, there were identical verbatim questions, I was stunned.
Karen DeFalla was deputy director of Post at the time and the training manager. She was also Carlene's boss.
The test was compromised.
The test was compromised.
And had been for years.
Apparently had been for a number of years, yes.
DeFalla says she told the director of the board, but she soon left her position to take another job. To her knowledge, nothing was done. So last year, Carlene went to her new boss. He instructed her
to do a detailed investigation into the Baca Book, but I was not to inform anybody that I was doing this.
She says her initial investigation made clear why her bosses wanted to keep this quiet.
There were approximately 61 plus or more of our post-exam questions that were located in the Baca Book.
She found that in April of last year, 48 prospective officers took the exam statewide. 46 passed it. All 46 used the Baca Book, while the 2 who failed it did not. What's more, she says she found the questions of one whole section of the book on the federal code are in the exact order as the test.
This section on the federal code is verbatim.
You know why? I wrote that. And you know why? I wrote that. Those are my questions, and the state uses those questions. I can tell you that exactly. And they used those questions because they had no other questions. And when they asked for our questions, I said, okay.
That's right. It's clear that Phil Baca, who chaired the curriculum committee of the Post Board, knew that the test was compromised.
I mean, you know they're on the test.
Yeah, I know they're on the test.
How do you know they're on the test?
They told me they were on the test.
Did you submit other questions to them?
Yes, I did.
And he says he's not the only one. Other instructors also submitted questions for the test. Only Baca is the only one packaging the questions in a study guide for sale.
So you presented this information to your boss and to the Assistant Attorney General?
I did.
How can this be a valid test if I've got the questions and answers?
John, I don't write that test. That's a question you'd have to ask the AG's office or Post, not me.
Now, the Attorney General, John Suthers, is refusing to talk. But ironically, the AG's office is helping the Denver DA go after Carlene Johnson Garcia on charges that she emailed a test to 2 officers to take it home, and then she lied about it. Johnson Garcia is fighting that charge, denying she lied to anyone. Meanwhile, the Attorney General has now hired a private company to create and administer future tests. But the real question is, why has the AG tried to keep all this quiet? And the real question, the bigger, larger question is will hundreds of officers who took this test, and knowing it's compromised, who got answers in this book in advance, are they going to have to retake this test? And there are hundreds of officers we know since 2007 who've used this, at least 2007, who've used this book.
Well, that's why they stood away from it. I mean, that's a potential huge mess there. My goodness.
Could be. We'll be following up.
All right, thanks a lot. Now, if you have a story idea for the investigators, give us a call at 303-832-7777 or email call7@thedenverchannel.com.